The battlefield was quiet now, but only because the fighting had moved farther away. Smoke rose in the distance, carrying the bitter smell of burning metal and the sharp sting of plasma fire. The ground was littered with wreckage, twisted armor, and broken machines. Among the ruins, a lone human soldier lay on the cracked earth. His name was Daniel. He was bleeding from his side, his vision blurry, and his breathing shallow. He tried to move, but pain spread across his body like fire. His last memory was of the battle, his squad advancing against alien lines, the sky filled with explosions, and then a strike that sent him tumbling into the dirt. He had lost his rifle somewhere. The comm device on his helmet was broken. He was alone, far from friendly forces, and every passing moment drained his strength. Daniel closed his eyes, thinking, this might be the end. But then he heard footsteps. They were soft but heavy, deliberate. Someone was moving cautiously, stepping over the broken metal. He forced his eyes open, expecting another human, maybe a medic, maybe a survivor. Instead, he saw her, the alien. Soldier stood tall, her armor damaged but still glowing faintly in places. Her skin was a pale shade, like silver touched by the moon, and her eyes burned with a strange light. Her people were enemies of humans, warriors trained from birth to fight without mercy. Daniel had been told that if captured, death would be certain. Yet she did not raise her weapon. Instead, she studied him. He tried to reach for a shard of metal nearby, something to defend himself with, but his arm was too weak. The alien woman tilted her head, then crouched beside him. Her voice, though strange and layered, carried words he could understand through the translator built into her armor. "Human," she said softly. "You are dying." Daniel wanted to laugh, but his throat was too dry. "Thanks for noticing," he whispered. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Her hand hovered over her own side, pressing against a wound hidden beneath cracked armor. She was injured too, though not as badly. She could have left him to bleed out. She should have. But something in her eyes betrayed hesitation. "You should not be here," she murmured almost to herself. Then, louder, "My blood can heal you, but if I give it, you will be tied to me. Your kind and mine. We'll call it a crime." Daniel barely processed her words. His thoughts were cloudy, and all he understood was that he had no chance without help. "Then do it," he breathed. "Better than dying here." Her jaw tightened. Clearly, this was not a decision she made lightly. Among her people, giving. Blood was sacred. It was more than medicine. It was a bond. To share it with an enemy was unthinkable. But she looked at him again and saw not a monster, not a threat, but another soldier broken by the same war. Slowly, she drew a blade from her belt. Daniel flinched, but she cut her own palm instead of his. Bright silver blood welled from the wound, shining faintly even in the smoky air. Carefully, she pressed her hand against his torn side. The effect was immediate. Warmth spread through his body, pushing back the cold weight of death. His wounds began to close, not fully, but enough to stop the bleeding. Strength returned to his arms, and his vision cleared. Daniel gasped, sitting up halfway before collapsing again. The alien woman pulled her hand back, her expression unreadable. "It is done," she said. Daniel touched his side. The pain was still there, but less sharp, less final. What did you do?" "Our blood carries life," she answered. "But now you are linked to me. When I hurt, you will feel it. When I bleed, you will know it. Your fate is tied to mine." He stared at her, unsure whether to thank her or curse her, but he realized the truth. She had saved his life when she didn't have to. "Why?" he asked. She looked away, toward the smoke still rising from the battlefield. "Because I am tired of watching death. Even an enemy should not die alone. In the dirt. Daniel let out a shaky breath. He still didn't trust her, not fully. But as he studied her face, he saw no cruelty there. She looked weary, just as he felt. Two soldiers caught in a war neither of them had chosen. His hand pressed against the healing wound, and for the first time since the battle began, he felt a spark of hope. Not much, but enough to keep going. The alien woman stood, scanning the ruins around them. Others will come, she warned. Your kind, my kind, both will kill us if they learn what we did. Daniel forced himself to sit up. His body ached, but he was alive. Then I guess we move, he said. She gave a small nod, her eyes locking with his. Though they had only just met, though they were supposed to be enemies, something new had formed between them, a bond neither of them could deny. The battlefield groaned with distant thunder, the war continuing somewhere beyond the smoke. But for Daniel and the alien woman, everything had changed. Their lives were no longer separate. They were tied together by blood, by choice, and by fate. The night came quickly on the battlefield. The fires that burned in the distance painted the sky with a faint orange glow, while the stars above looked cold and distant. Daniel leaned against a broken piece of armor plating, trying to steady his breathing. Though his wound had closed, his body still felt strange, like his veins carried something heavier than blood. The alien woman stood a few steps away, silent and alert. Her sharp eyes scanned the ruins as though danger could rise at any moment. The dim light revealed her features more clearly. She was young, but her face carried the weight of countless battles. The scar that crossed her cheek told a story Daniel didn't dare ask about. Finally, he broke the silence. So, what's your name? She turned her head slightly, hesitating. Names have power among my kind, she said. But if you must know, call me Kara. Daniel nodded. Kara. Huh. Well, I'm Daniel, but I guess you already knew that. She didn't answer, but he noticed her gaze flicker, almost like she was studying him, not with suspicion, but with curiosity. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. There was something he couldn't ignore anymore. It wasn't just the healing. He felt connected. When Kara shifted her weight, he sensed it, like a whisper in the back of his mind. When she tensed at a distant sound, he too felt a sudden jolt of alertness before realizing it wasn't his own. It's real, isn't it? He said quietly. This bond thing you talked about. Kara finally faced him. Yes, our lives are tied now. I feel your heartbeat. I sense your pain. And you sense mine. There is no escape from it. Daniel exhaled slowly. He had been trained to fight aliens, to treat them as dangerous enemies who could not be trusted. But this bond left no room for lies. If she meant to betray him, he would feel it. If she meant harm, he would know. Strangely, the thought brought him a sense of calm. Great, he muttered. So now we're stuck with each other. It was your choice, Kara reminded him. I gave you the chance to refuse. He gave a weak laugh. Well, forgive me for not wanting to bleed out in the dirt. She did not laugh with him, but he thought he saw the faintest shift in her expression, like she understood the joke even if she wouldn't admit it. For a while, they sat in silence again, listening to the distant echoes of war. Daniel closed his eyes, but then something sharp pricked his senses. Fear. It wasn't his own. He opened his eyes and turned toward her. What is it? He asked. Kara's hand tightened around her weapon. Scouts, moving close. Daniel reached for a jagged piece of wreckage, something he could use as a blade, but Kara raised a hand. Not yet. They will pass if we stay low. Sure enough, a squad of armored figures moved across the ruins, their armor carrying the dark crest of Kara's people. Their strange language carried faintly through the night. Daniel didn't understand the words, but he didn't need to. The intent was clear. They were searching, hunting. Daniel's muscles tensed. He wanted to run, but Kara's calm steadiness flowed through the bond, grounding him. He forced himself to stay still until the squad moved on, their shadows swallowed by smoke and distance. Only when silence returned did Daniel let out a breath. "They were yours," he whispered. Kara gave a slow nod. "If they had found us, they would have killed me for helping you, and they would have killed you simply because you live." The weight of her words sank deep into Daniel's chest. Not only was he hunted by aliens, but by his own people too. Humans would never believe he had been saved by an enemy. To them, he would be contaminated, compromised, maybe even dangerous. "So," he said bitterly, "we're enemies to everyone now." Kara's voice was calm but firm. "Yes, but survival is possible if we work together." Daniel chuckled dryly. "Funny, isn't it? Two enemies forced to cooperate because of blood." Her eyes fixed on him. "Not funny. Fate." Daniel didn't argue. Maybe she was right. Maybe there was a reason for all this. As the night stretched on, they found shelter inside the shell of a ruined transport. The walls blocked the cold wind, though not the memories of battle. Daniel tried to sleep, but dreams came quickly. Dreams that were not his own. He saw flashes of a tall city beneath a red sky, alien banners flying in the wind, and soldiers training in endless drills. He saw a younger version of Kara, carrying a spear too heavy for her arms, yet refusing to fall. He felt her pride when she was finally accepted among the warriors of her clan. Daniel jolted awake, his heart pounding. Kara sat across from him, her eyes half closed, but he knew she was awake too. "I saw your memories," he whispered. She opened her eyes fully. "And I saw yours, a small house by a river, a woman who looked like your sister. The way you laughed together." Daniel's throat tightened. "So it's not just feelings, we can see each other's past, too." Kara nodded slowly. "The bond runs deeper than I expected. We will share, more than wounds and breath. We will share pieces of our souls." Daniel leaned back against the wall, stunned. This wasn't just survival anymore. Their bond was rewriting who they were. The next morning, they set out across the ruins, careful, to avoid patrols. Daniel limped, but with Kara's steady presence, he found strength he didn't think he had. They didn't speak much, but the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was filled with the strange rhythm of two lives beating as one. When they stopped to rest, Daniel broke the quiet. "What happens if one of us dies?" Kara looked at him seriously. "Then the other will follow. Quickly." He frowned. "So neither of us can die without dooming the other." "Yes," she said simply. "Our lives are one now." Daniel sighed, shaking his head. "Guess I better keep you alive then." To his surprise, Kara's lips curved in the faintest smile. "And I must keep you alive, human." In that moment, Daniel realized something shocking. He didn't feel fear anymore. Not of her, not of the bond, not even of the war outside. He felt something else, a strange trust, fragile but real. And as they moved forward together, he knew one thing. Whatever awaited them, they would face it side by side. The sun rose weakly through the haze of smoke, casting the battlefield in a dull gray light. Daniel and Kara moved carefully through the ruins, keeping close to shadows and broken metal. The air was thick with the stench of burned ships and scorched earth. Silence hung heavy, broken only by distant booms of artillery. Daniel's body was stronger than before, though he still felt the strangeness of Kara's blood inside him. Every step he took, he could sense her presence in his mind. When she paused, he felt her caution ripple through him. When she looked around sharply, his own nerves tensed before he realized it wasn't his fear, but hers. "This is getting weird," he muttered after an hour of silence. I can feel every mood you have. Kara glanced at him briefly, but kept walking. It is the same for me. Your impatience is loud. Daniel gave a half smile despite the danger. Guess you'll just have to get used to it. They reached the edge of a shattered ridge where the remains of human vehicles were scattered. Daniel froze when he saw the familiar insignia of his own unit burned into a broken transport. His chest tightened. My squad, he whispered. They were here. Kara stopped beside him. Through the bond, she felt his sorrow like a heavy stone pressing against her chest. She did not speak, but her silence carried a strange kind of respect. Before Daniel could move closer, voices echoed from behind the ridge. He crouched low instantly, pulling Kara down with him. Peering over the edge, he saw human soldiers advancing. Carefully, their rifles raised. At first, relief flooded him. His people. He could call out, join them, maybe even get back to safety. But then Kara's thought struck through their bond like a blade. Danger. Daniel frowned. They're my people, he whispered. Kara's eyes narrowed. They will not accept you now, not with my blood inside you. They will see you as compromised, an enemy. Her words cut deep, but part of him knew she was right. Even his closest comrades would never believe what had happened. To them, he was either contaminated by alien influence or a traitor working with the enemy. He stayed silent as the soldiers moved past, scanning the wreckage. Their voices were sharp, and he caught fragments of their words. Search for survivors. Kill any alien on sight. Orders are clear. Daniel's chest ached, but he did not rise. When the soldiers finally disappeared into the smoke, he let out a long breath. They would have shot you, he said quietly. And maybe me too. Kara nodded. Now you see, we are hunted by both sides. The truth pressed down on him. He was a soldier without an army now, and she was a warrior, cut off from her people. Their only chance was together. As they moved on, Kara guided him toward an abandoned outpost half buried in rubble. Inside, the walls still stood, though barely. Broken equipment lay scattered, and a cracked screen flickered with static. They found a corner to rest. Daniel leaned against the wall, rubbing his hands over his face. So, what now? We can't go to my people. We can't go to yours. We've got nowhere. Kara sat across from him, her posture straight despite exhaustion. We survive. We move until we find a way off this field. Daniel shook his head. And then what? The bond won't just go away. We're stuck like this forever. Kara's gaze hardened, but he could feel the uncertainty beneath it. Yes. But together, we are stronger. You already feel it. He wanted to argue, but she was right. He did feel stronger. His wound was healing faster than it should. His senses were sharper, his body lighter, almost as if her strength was bleeding into him. And through the bond, he sensed her feeling the same. More endurance, quicker recovery, sharper focus. They were changing. Suddenly, a loud crash shook the outpost. Both leapt to their feet. Daniel grabbed a metal rod while Kara readied her blade. Figures burst through the shattered entrance, alien scouts, their armor glowing faintly. They had tracked them here. Daniel didn't think. He moved with Kara as if guided by one mind. When she ducked, he ducked. When she struck, he followed, swinging his improvised weapon. It wasn't perfect, but together, they fought with a rhythm neither had known before. Two scouts fell quickly, stunned by the speed of their coordination. The third raised a plasma rifle, but Daniel felt Kara's sudden fear through the bond and moved before he even saw the weapon. He shoved her aside and swung the rod, knocking the shot off course. The blast scorched the wall. Kara lunged, driving her blade into the scout's chest. Silence returned as the last body hit the ground. Daniel stood panting, staring at the fallen soldiers. Your people, he said quietly. Kara's expression was grim. Yes. They will not stop until we are both dead. Daniel wiped sweat from his brow. Then we keep moving. They left the outpost behind, heading toward the rocky hills beyond the battlefield. Each step carried the weight of the truth. They were enemies of both armies now, hunted, hated, and alone. But as they climbed higher, Daniel glanced at Kara. Despite everything, he felt steady. The bond between them was strange, unwanted, maybe even dangerous. But it was also the only thing keeping them alive. We'll figure it out, he said firmly. Kara looked at him, her silver eyes steady. We must, because we have no one else. As the sun dipped low behind the smoke-filled sky, they disappeared into the hills. Two soldiers from opposite sides, tied by blood and hunted by all. And yet, for the first time, Daniel felt like they were not running from something, but toward something else entirely. The rocky hills stretched before Daniel and Kyra like a harsh, unwelcoming sea. Jagged stones jutted out at odd angles, and the wind whispered cold secrets as it swept through the cracks. They climbed slowly, careful not to make noise that would give away their position. Every step carried the weight of their hunted lives, but also a quiet hope. Hope that beyond these hills might lie safety. Daniel limped but kept pace, leaning heavily on a broken branch he found along the way. His body still ached from wounds, healed but not forgotten. The bond with Kara pulsed softly inside him like a quiet heartbeat, reminding him that they were connected in ways he could not yet understand. Kara's eyes scanned the horizon constantly. She moved with the grace of a born warrior, but the tiredness in her movements was clear. This war had dragged on for years, but never had she faced an enemy so strange as this, one tied to her by blood, yet from a different world. Do you think we'll make it? Daniel asked quietly. His voice was rough but steady. Kara paused and looked at him. We must. For now, our lives are one. If one falls, the other follows. Daniel swallowed hard. The weight of those words settled deep in his mind. It was not just survival anymore. It was about keeping each other alive against impossible odds. They rested near a small outcrop of rock, hidden from sight. Kara pulled out a small container with water and offered it to Daniel. He drank gratefully, feeling the cool liquid soothe his dry throat. Have you felt the changes? She asked after a moment. Daniel nodded. Yeah. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel stronger. Like my body heals faster. Even the pain isn't as sharp. Kara smiled faintly. The bond shares more than life. It shares strength. He looked at her, surprised. You feel it too? Yes, she said. I heal faster. My reflexes are sharper. It is as if we share power. The thought was both exciting and frightening. Two enemies, joined not just by blood, but by strength, moving as one against a hostile universe. As they prepared to move again, a sudden sharp sound broke the quiet, a soft hum, almost like a heartbeat. Both froze, senses alert. What is that? Daniel whispered. Kara's eyes narrowed. It is coming from inside the hill. Curiosity and caution battled within them. With no other choice, they moved closer, following the sound. A narrow cave mouth appeared between the rocks, hidden by shadows. Do you think it's safe? Daniel asked, gripping his makeshift weapon. We have no shelter, Kara replied. We must risk it. Inside the cave, the air was cool and damp. The hum grew louder, vibrating softly against their bones. Deeper in, they found a strange device, a small orb glowing with faint light covered in unknown symbols. Daniel reached out, fingers trembling. What is this? Kara studied it carefully. An ancient relic of power. My people believed these orbs could store energy, even life. The orb pulsed gently, as if alive. Daniel placed his hand beside it, and suddenly, a rush of warmth spread through his body. He gasped as visions flashed in his mind, images of stars, galaxies, and vast ships moving silently through space. Kara touched the orb next. She too felt the power flow into her, filling her with strength and clarity. Through the bond, their sensations merged, becoming one. "This could help us," Kara said. "If we learn to control it, we could survive longer." Daniel nodded, feeling hope bloom inside him for the first time in days. They decided to carry the orb with them, a new secret weapon hidden from all who hunted them. As they left the cave, their bond pulsed stronger, connecting them in ways neither could explain. It was no longer just blood that tied them. It was something deeper, something new. Their journey through the rocky hills was slow but steady. They shared stories. Daniel spoke of his family and the world he came from, a blue planet full of rivers and trees. Kara told him about her home, a harsh desert world where only the strongest survived. Though their worlds were different, they found common ground in their struggles and dreams. The bond softened the hatred they once held. They were no longer just soldier and alien. They were companions, tied together by fate and choice. One evening, as stars blinked to life overhead, Daniel asked quietly, "Do you think the war will ever end?" Kara's eyes reflected the distant stars. "Perhaps, but only if we survive to see it." Daniel smiled faintly. "Then we fight not just for ourselves, but for a future beyond the war." Kara nodded. "A future where blood does not mean death." As they rested beneath the cold sky, the strange orb glowing softly between them, both knew their path was uncertain. The galaxy was vast, filled with enemies and dangers, but together they had found strength, a bond that would carry them through whatever came next. And for the first time, hope was not just a dream, but a promise. The quiet between Daniel and Kara was different now. It was no longer the silence of strangers forced together by fate. It was the silence of two warriors who had learned to trust each other, even in a galaxy that wanted them dead. They moved carefully through a dense forest on the edge of a forgotten world. Tall trees with dark leaves reached to the sky, blocking the weak sunlight. The air smelled fresh, but carried an undercurrent of danger. "We need to find a way off this planet," Daniel said. "Somewhere to hide, maybe." Kara nodded. "My scouts say the nearest spaceport is over 100 miles away, heavily guarded." "Then we'll find another way," Daniel said. His voice was calm but firm. "We've survived worse." Their bond pulsed between them, stronger with every step. Daniel felt Kara's steady heartbeat, and she sensed his determination. Together, they had become more than just survivors. They were a force. As they made their way through the forest, Daniel noticed movement ahead. Small figures watching them from the shadows. Children with curious eyes and cautious smiles. "Look," he whispered. "They don't seem afraid." Kara lowered her weapon slowly. "These are the locals. They live in hidden villages. They fear outsiders, but they do not attack." The children stepped forward, offering small gifts, strange fruits, and carved stones. Daniel smiled, reaching out to accept. "Maybe not all worlds are full of enemies," he said softly. Kara nodded. "Some still hold hope." But their moment of peace was shattered by distant sounds, engines roaring through the trees. Both froze as a squad of alien soldiers burst into the clearing, weapons raised. "They found us," Daniel said, gripping his weapon. Kara stepped protectively in front of him. "We must fight." The battle was fierce but brief. Daniel and Kara moved as one, their bond guiding their actions. Each strike was precise, each defense perfectly timed. The locals watched from hiding, awe and fear in their eyes. When the last soldier fell, Daniel looked at Kara, breathless. "We can't keep running forever." "No," she agreed. "But we must keep fighting, for ourselves, and for what we believe." As night fell, they made camp near a quiet stream. The orb they had found in the cave glowed softly beside them, a beacon of hope in the darkness. "Do you think anyone believes our story?" Daniel asked, staring into the fire. Kara shook her head. "Leaders will not, but ordinary people, maybe. Stories spread, even in war." "Then maybe we can change things," Daniel said. "Show that enemies can stand together." Kara smiled faintly. "That is a dangerous idea." "Dangerous, but necessary," Daniel replied. Their bond pulsed warmly between them, a reminder that they were no longer alone. Whatever the galaxy thought, they were united. The next day, they moved toward the spaceport, hidden by the thick forest. It was a risky plan, but they had no choice. To survive, they needed to leave this world and find allies who would accept their bond. As they approached the clearing where the spaceport lay, alarms blared. Patrols surrounded the area. Daniel and Kara ducked behind trees, watching the guards. "Too many," Daniel whispered. "We can't fight them all." Kara's eyes gleamed with determination. "We don't have to. We have the orb." She held up the glowing orb, and suddenly a wave of energy pulsed outward. Guards stumbled, their weapons faltering. "Now!" Kara shouted. They sprinted through the clearing, dodging fire. The bond gave them strength and speed beyond normal. They reached the edge of the spaceport where a small ship waited. "Get in!" Daniel yelled. Inside the cockpit, Kara fired up the engines. Alarms blared again as soldiers closed in. The ship lifted, off, shaking from the sudden blast of power. As they soared into the sky, Daniel looked at Kara, a new respect in his eyes. "We did it." "But this is just the beginning," Kara said. "The galaxy will not accept us easily." Daniel nodded. "Then we'll show them a new way." Their ship sped toward the stars, carrying two enemies-turned allies, bound by blood and choice, ready to change the fate of the galaxy. The stars stretched endlessly outside the ship's windows as Daniel and Kara flew through the dark void. The hum of the engines filled the quiet cabin, but neither spoke much. Their thoughts were heavy with what lay ahead. Daniel looked at Kara, her face calm but tired. The bond between them pulsed steadily, a constant reminder of their shared fate. No longer just enemies, no longer just survivors, they were partners, bound by blood and choice. "Do you think we'll find a place to belong?" Daniel asked. Quietly, Kara's silver eyes met his. "The galaxy fears what it does not understand, but that does not mean we give up." He nodded slowly. "We have to try, for ourselves and for everyone else, caught in this endless war." They had become legends already. Whispers spread through star systems about a human and an alien, bound together by a strange blood bond, fighting side by side. Some called them heroes, others threats, but all watched with curiosity and fear. As the ship approached a small neutral planet known for its independent traders and outcasts, Daniel prepared for what might come. The landing was tense. The spaceport was busy. But there were eyes everywhere. Guards, mercenaries, curious onlookers. Kara guided the ship smoothly down. As they stepped outside, they were met with silence. And then murmurs. Human and alien. A trader whispered, "Together? Impossible." Daniel felt the weight of stares but held his head high. Kara stood beside him, proud and strong. They sought out the planet's leader, a wise woman known for her fairness. After listening to their story, she agreed to offer them sanctuary, if they could prove their loyalty and worth. Over the next weeks, Daniel and Kara trained and worked together, helping the planet's defense forces prepare for threats. Their Bond gave them unique strength, and soon many began to respect the strange pair. But word of their alliance reached the great empires still waging war. Fleets moved to crush what they saw as a threat to the fragile order. One night, alarms blared across the planet. Enemy ships had arrived intent on capturing or destroying the pair who dared challenge the status quo. Daniel and Kara stood together, ready. Their bond flared, linking their minds and bodies in perfect harmony. The battle was fierce. Ships clashed in the sky, weapons firing bright streaks of light. On the ground, soldiers fought alongside them, inspired by their courage. Despite being outnumbered, Daniel and Kara's combined strength turned the tide. Their unique bond made them nearly unstoppable. When the last enemy ship retreated, silence fell. The leader approached them, her eyes filled with respect. "You have changed this world," she said, "and maybe the galaxy." Daniel looked at Kara, a smile breaking through his tired face. "Maybe we have." Kara nodded. "Our bond is no curse. It is a new beginning." Together they had shown that enemies could become allies, that blood could unite instead of divide. And as the stars shone bright above, Daniel and Kara prepared to carry their message across the galaxy. Peace was possible, if only beings chose trust over hate.